Welcome back to the Logic Dilemma. I'm your host, American Mike, coming to you from the Purple Mountain Majesties. From sea to shining sea. America the Beautiful.
What's special about this egg roll?
Well, what's so special is this is the people's house. And we expect over 40,000 people to be here, the largest ever. And we just like to open it up the place and let people see this is their place.
The President of the United States, ladies and gentlemen. Every time I hear him talk, I wonder why he isn't in a home somewhere. You know, it's interesting. I've always wondered, why is everyone talking about his mental state? Well, it's because we see things like that. We wouldn't be talking about him having dementia if we didn't see it almost every day. Welcome again. This is the show where we discuss current events and we discuss how sometimes thinking logically can get in the way of our feelings. It is true that logic is sometimes hard for us to understand, especially in American politics. So that recording from our president was on Easter, yesterday, March 31st. Another important day that he announced was the Transgender Day of Visibility. Now, I thought this was very odd. Why would you pick Easter Sunday as a Transgender Day of Visibility? Well, I first pictured in my mind when he said this that it was, the transgender adults running around in all their foolishness. I'm sorry, it's not very logical. But when I read the statement from the White House, I realized it's much different. It's much different than that. It's actually, in my mind, a little bit worse. Let's talk about it. The statement from the president of Joe Biden on the whitehouse.gov briefing room says, on Transgender Day of Visibility, and this is quoting, "We celebrate the strength, joy, and absolute courage of some of the bravest people I know. Transgender Americans deserve to be safe and supported in every community." Let's pause right there. Did he just say some of the bravest people I know? What makes them brave? Well, I'm not sure. Does it make you brave that you are dressing as someone of a different gender? Okay, I could see that. It does take guts to go out there and dressed as someone of a different gender. It does take guts, I guess. It's pretty brave to say that I want to be able to not only dress as a different gender, but I want to be able to push my delusions onto other people and make them see me how I view myself. That is certainly brave, but the bravest people I know, we have soldiers. We have soldiers that are fighting. We have first responders. We have police. Remember Jonathan Diller, who has just lost his life in New York? A police officer loses his life. Biden makes no attempt to attend any of the services. And yet, transgender Americans are the bravest people he knows. I don't know what to think about that. In fact, I don't know. We have a lot of really brave Americans, and it has nothing to do with the man putting on a dress. I don't know. He goes on to say, and this is what's so funny about this. They're brave not because they are transgender, but because they're brave, because Donald Trump is so rude to them. He goes on to say, and then I start the quote back up, but today across our country, MAGA extremists are advancing hundreds of hateful and extreme state laws that target transgender kids and their families. So here's a statement from the president on Transgender Day of Visibility. And he calls out MAGA extremists? Now, what is a MAGA extremist? Because more than half the country, I would actually say 3/4 of the country, do not believe in teaching children how to be transgender. So MAGA extremists, you see, to be transgender is one thing. That is your choice. That is a choice that you make. But to be pushing that onto children at young ages, most of the country is against that. Most of the country. I don't have the exact numbers, but I know it's more than 50% of people will tell you, do not push this on our children. And that has nothing to do with MAGA extremists. You see, we've been growing. The numbers have been growing. The numbers of transgender have been growing across America over the past few years. And I say few years because it really is. It's been, our country has been just blowing up with this idea of transgender. And a lot of it is driven by society and social acceptance. And a lot of it is being driven by teaching this to children. So when we talk about Transgender Day of Visibility, it is Easter Sunday was picked as that day because it targets children. Children. Let me go on with the statement. Transgender kids and their families. No one should have to be brave just to be themselves. That's not true at all. I'm brave. Everybody has to be brave to be themselves. I don't know what to even think about this. You mean to tell me that kids can't be brave unless they're choosing a different gender? It goes on, let me be clear. Now, me is from the voice of the president. So when he says, let me be clear, this is coming from him. I'm sorry. I know Joe Biden. We've been following Joe Biden his entire career. Joe Biden 10 years ago would have never said this. Joe Biden 5 years ago would have never said this. So when we hear, let me be clear, I don't know who's writing this, but it's not Joe Biden. That's what's so ridiculous about all of this. Is Joe Biden's just along for the ride. I wish that we could just have a president who could stand up, say what he's thinking, and lead the country. Oh, wait! That's what Donald Trump does. Nobody controls him. And we like it. We like when he makes mistakes. Because that's what humans do. But Biden, his mistakes are because he's handicapped and he shouldn't even be there with his dementia. Obviously. Come on. Obviously. But then we have people behind the scenes writing stuff like this. So, let me continue. Let me be clear. These attacks are un-American and must end. The bullying, discrimination, and political attacks that trans kids face have exacerbated our national mental health crisis. More than half of transgender youth say they have seriously considered suicide. Loving parents are terrified for their children's futures. To help, my administration is providing dedicated emergency mental health resources. If you're a transgender young person who needs help, you can call 988 to reach the nationwide suicide prevention and crisis hotline. Okay, first off, obviously I don't condone suicide, and I hope that people do get help. But do you know what they classify as bullying, discrimination, political attacks? Number one, a political attack would be a state passing a law banning transgender from being taught to young children in schools. Duh. Obviously. That's a very logical bill to pass. The fact that we even have to pass that bill doesn't make sense to me. The fact that we even have people wanting to teach our children about how to be transgender, it blows my mind. If later on in life takes them in a direction where they do choose to represent themselves as a different gender, that's completely fine. That's their path in life. But to teach it to children, our society is cultivating this idea that children need to be able to choose their genders. And so transgender youth are growing in numbers beyond anything we've ever seen. It shouldn't be. It should be a natural thing, not something that's taught. If it's natural, that gives everybody the ability to say, well, that's the way they feel. Instead, we have this, well, no, they're being taught that in schools, and it's being shoved down their throat, and they're being taught by therapists and counselors that maybe they need to change their gender. I have a family member who has been going to a counselor or a therapist who has tried to get her to change, not necessarily change genders, but just to get rid of the gender from her life. And so this family member who's in her late 20s has completely lost track of who she is and completely lost track of where she wants to be in the future. Has gone through surgeries to remove gender from her life. All because a counselor is pushing her to do this. Now, I would love to be able to step in and say, stop. Think about what you're doing. But again, that is what is classified as bullying or discrimination. You see, if we tell our children not to focus on becoming a different gender, that's discrimination. If we tell our children that, hey, no. You're a girl and you're going to be a girl, or you're a boy and you're going to be a boy, that's bullying. See, if we don't just completely conform and do exactly what they want us to say and do, if we don't do, like I said in earlier episodes of this show, if we don't walk out at high noon and stare at the sun and say, it is nighttime, that's bullying. And that's the example I gave earlier in a previous episode. That's what they're wanting. They're wanting us to buy into their delusion so that we can say, oh, no. I'm staring right at the sun at high noon. But you know what? It is nighttime. I'm not going to do that. And that's not bullying. I have a whole bunch of children, and I'll tell you what, we talk very openly about how we need to love everyone. We need to make sure that we are tolerant. We need to make sure that we are inclusive. We need to make sure that we teach this every single day. My wife and I teach our children this almost every single day, that we need to make sure that no one is hurt by anything we've said or anything we've done or anything like that. We are nice. We are kind. And we try to live our lives in a way that people will want to be around us. But I also teach them that boys are boys and girls are girls. That's it. Any deviation from that is the choice of the individual, of course. But that's what it is. It's a choice of the individual. Because guess what? As much as you hate me for saying all of this, that's logical. That's what logic is. Logic tells us that an individual who is a woman, guess what? Can't change her gender to be a man. A man can't change his gender to be a woman. I don't care how many surgeries you have. I don't care how many hormone treatments you have. I don't care how often I don't care how good you look. If you're one of the few, the top 0.1% of them that you can't tell, well, good for you. For the rest of them, we know, and it is your choice. But there's nothing you can do to change who you are. And you cannot change your gender. So let's talk about suicide. Yes, it is true. Suicide is on the rise with youth and with children who are transgender. It is true. But guess what? It's not because of bullying. You look at these children. You have a boy out there who's 12, wants to become a girl, and his parents are pushing and for it and loving and you do you. And not one person stops to think, hey, you know what? I feel like this young man is going through a very severe identity crisis right now. He's heard some things. He's learned some things. He's trying some things out. And he's going through an identity crisis. You think that all these kids that suicide is high and all these kids are killing themselves because of bullying? Of discrimination? Again, what they're classifying as bullying and discrimination is just that we don't agree with. You're not a girl. We can see it. There's nothing you can do. I'm sorry, I'm a logical person. It's not logical. Now, I usually don't say a word. But most people don't say a word nowadays. Most people. And yet the suicide rate is still high. It's because they need help. And they're not getting it. They need help. They're crying out. My identity is at risk. I need help. Everybody thinks that suicide is on the rise because of bullying. No, it's not. It is because they're not getting the help that they need. I'm sorry for yelling. This just makes me so angry because everyone is looking at the wrong people to blame. No, it's the Republicans. Oh, it's the MAGA extremists. I mean, this letter actually calls out MAGA extremists. Are you kidding me? These are our children. And like I said before, if later on in life someone decides, or not even decides, let me say, because I know that's a bad word for the transgender community. Decides. No, they want to act like nobody's deciding anything. This is just how they are. So let me just say, all right, someone becomes a woman or realizes that they are a woman. This guy realizes that he's a woman. Okay, that's one thing. But teaching this to our children is off limits. It should be. Because that's the logical piece of this. Now, this goes on to say, my administration will never quit fighting to end discrimination, to stand against these unjust state laws. And again, let me pause there. What is he meaning by state laws? Not state laws banning transgender. No. It's state laws banning it from being taught to children. Why are we teaching this to children anyway? Anyway, and I'll continue. And to guarantee everyone the fundamental right and freedom to be who they are. We'll never stop working to create a world where everyone can live without fear, where parents, teachers, and whole communities come together to support kids no matter how they identify, and every child is surrounded by compassion and love. I want every member of the trans community to know that we see you. You're each made in the image of God and deserve love, dignity, and respect. You make America stronger, and we're with you. I don't even know what to say. Transgender community makes America stronger. Really? Are they being serious here? And yes, we're all made in the image of God. I do believe that. And we all have our free choice. That's true. That's also a God-given right, our freedom to choose. So like I said, if somebody wants to go and if a guy wants to be a woman, that's up to him. Who am I to judge that? I don't. But you're made in the image of God. Well, God didn't make you a woman. He made you a man. And you can't change that. So there you go. When it comes to suicide, though, the suicide rates are so high because they're not getting the help they need. They're being told that they can do this. And what happens is, and the suicide rates are really high because, again, going back to my family member, what happens is they are working with people who are pushing this onto them. And this is what's happening here, working with people pushing this onto them. And then they go through surgeries to change their body, or they go down a path where they identify so well with the different gender that that's how everybody comes to know them. And they get down a path so far that when they hit rock bottom, and when I say rock bottom, I mean that point at which they realize that they made a mistake, which they all will. They all do. Especially like my family member. She's eventually going to realize that this was a mistake. They realize that there's no coming back from this. They've had surgeries. They've had so many hormone treatments that they can't ever get back to normal. And they can't just turn on society and all the people that supported them all of a sudden to say, oh, wait, I don't want to do this. And they're stuck. And for a lot of them, suicide is the only way out from there. Because they don't want to progress further into their gender role that they've chosen, and they don't know how to back out of it. So you talk to me about suicide. I have a lot of experience in this. They're not committing suicide because they're being made fun of. Hey, maybe. I'm not saying, okay, let me go back. I'm sure that exists. It does. It does exist. I'm not going to generalize and say that doesn't exist. No, it does. Some children who are bullied will take their own lives. And even in the transgender. I'm saying that that's not the reason why we're seeing the increase in numbers. Because every kid that's bullied has the propensity to commit suicide. That natural tendency, any child who feels that they're bullied. So bullying and suicide actually, it spans far beyond transgender. But for the most part, most of the transgender is that they get down a path that they don't know how to come back from, and they're not getting the help they need. They're not getting the psychological help that they need. These are people who, I interviewed someone for a job once. And keep in mind, I talk about this on my show, but when I love everyone. So when I'm actually conversing with transgender people, I'm so kind and I'm so nice because I don't want anyone to feel awkward. So please understand, I feel this way, and I will talk about it openly when I'm teaching it and when I'm talking with my children about it and when I'm talking on this radio show about it. But if I'm talking to a transgender individual, I'm not sitting there saying, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing this. No. But I gave a job interview, and this girl came in, and she was probably 6'5", 300 pounds, not fat, just muscly. And obviously a man. Obvious. A beard but dressed in really nice clothing. And obviously her gender identification had nothing to do with whether or not she got the job. So understand, I don't ever do that. A transgender person can perform a job just as well as anybody. I'm not that far gone, people. But she came in, and I just, the whole time talking with her, I was thinking, and obviously I'm identifying her and seeing her pronouns as she, her, but clearly a man. Again, it's one of those instances where I was forced to stand out in the middle of the day and say it was night. That's just lie to everybody, lie to myself. But anyway, obviously a man. And the whole time I was sitting there thinking, I feel so bad. And I think that's what we feel mostly when we see transgender people, especially transgender children. I feel so bad. This person is obviously going through an identity crisis that I don't even understand. And yet, and again, I guess that's the way to look at it. I don't understand it. But I will be honest, I teach my children every day. Men are men and women are women. That's it. And we have very specific roles in life. And women can do what men can, and men can do what women can, but you can never really change your gender. But again, what supersedes all of that teaching is love. Love everyone. That does supersede all of it. So, what's interesting about this statement is all of it. I thought that it was just transgender, but it wasn't until I read the statement that I realized that it was directed at children. That all of this was children, and maybe that's why they picked Easter Sunday, because Easter is a more childish holiday. Children are involved with Easter. Easter's, they run around, they look for their eggs, and whatever it is that you want to do on Easter, it is primarily for children. But I thought that it was very odd that we called yesterday Transgender Day of Visibility. You know who else thought it was odd? Everyone. Everyone. When I can go to the liberal media and I can see, and I'm looking on MSNBC, and I'm looking on NBC News, and I'm looking on CNN yesterday, and I don't see anything about this. Well, I can only get it from, this is a statement about transgender recognizing a day of visibility, and on Easter Sunday, this is a big deal. And I couldn't find it on any news agency. I was scrolling through my phone, trying to find it on my phone in Apple News, which Apple News, by the way, tangent here, but do you know how angry it makes me? Every time I see an article that I want to know what it says, and I click on it, and then I get out of it. I can never find that again. It's like it just disappears into the ether. I have no idea where it goes. Same thing have you ever had this happen? You look at your suggested news articles, and there's one and there's the whole list is there, and you look at and you say, oh, I want to read that article. Especially doing this show, I read all the news from everywhere, and I go and I see it, and I say, oh, I want to read that, and just as I go to click at that news story, the feed refreshes, and I lose that story forever. Never find it again. Anyway, that was a tangent. So, I couldn't find this story anywhere in liberal media. I read about it on foxnews.com, and Fox News reported it. When liberal media sees a story and actively, which is what they did, actively tries to suppress it, that's a story that's going to hurt the Biden campaign. Why? Why would they do this in the last year, right before an election? Democrats are all about elections. They don't do anything unless they focus group it. And boy, did they pick the wrong focus group this time. Everybody was up in arms about having done this on Easter Sunday. Pick a different day, folks. But the liberal media didn't touch it. They didn't want anything to do with it. Now, I know that the White House press secretary talked about it today. I didn't catch that, so maybe we'll talk about it later, but I haven't actually caught up on that yet. So, but that's only because they were asked about it. Because everybody's wondering what the heck you're doing. Easter Sunday? It's like a slap in the face to Christians everywhere. And you know what? When you do something like this that goes against one religion, every religion should be worried. Because every religion is fair game when we start going after religious beliefs and things like this. So Everyone should be worried about something like this. They could have picked any day. They could have picked the day before Easter to do Transgender Day of Visibility, and it wouldn't have been this bad. But no, they picked Easter Sunday. I don't know. I don't get it. Well, the media is kind of messed up anyway. I'll tell you, I have my own thoughts about the media. You know how many articles I've read over the years of just garbage from everyone? Just garbage. And I get it. You can't bring ratings to your website or to your news station without drama. But I read so much garbage. And it's just nothing articles that mean nothing, but they're trying to make something of it. We get this with Trump all the time. Trump all the time. He's constantly being attacked in the media for really ridiculous things. So, let me tell you, this Transgender Day of Visibility, we get that. And we get that on Easter, and everybody's all mad about it. And the first thing that MSNBC posts today is how many times Donald... Sorry, I'm laughing. Let me start over. The first thing that MSNBC posts today is how many times Donald Trump tweeted over the weekend on social media or used X on social media. How many times he commented on social media. The number was 77, which I have to say is pretty high. It is. I kind of wish I remember when Donald Trump was president. Look, I think he manages the country better than Biden ever will. And I think he manages the country better than Obama did, for sure. I think that Donald Trump was a great president. But there were times where I was like, can somebody just slap the phone out of his hand, please? All of these social media posts are just driving me crazy. Stop posting so much. But again, do you know how refreshing it is to have a president that can do what he wants and he can say what he wants and we know that nobody's controlling him? That's what people like about Trump. Nobody's pulling the strings. Remember what I said earlier? Biden didn't write this Transgender Day of Visibility. In fact, he probably didn't even know about it. I mean, the way he talks, I don't even know if he knows. He doesn't even know who he is. I mean, we see it every single speech. But Donald Trump, so he posts 77 times on social media. Yes, that's high. Does that affect his ability to govern the country? No. No, he does a great job. And he did do a great job, and he's going to do a great job if he's elected in November. But this is the problem, is that they try to find the tiniest, littlest things and then just attack him for it. Tiny little things. You know, I saw a article. We're still trying, the liberal media is still trying to attack Donald Trump for his classified documents. I thought we were past that because Biden was worse. He was way worse. The report that came out shows that he knew about his classified documents years ago. And he knew that they were in the garage next to his Corvette. Which is actually, let me stop right there. I'm a car guy. His Corvette's pretty nice, by the way. I think it's pretty cool. Anyway, so all of his classified documents are in his garage, and he knows it. He told people that years ago. Oh, but he immediately came forward with his classified documents. No, he didn't. He didn't. What do you mean by immediately? Because he didn't. Anyway, that's what they just find anything they can to attack Donald Trump with. But this Transgender Day of Visibility for children of transgender who on Easter Sunday, heaven forbid we bring that up. The media has to actively try not to report on it. They did. They actively tried to suppress the story because that's how stupid it is. That's how just absolute dumb it is. I shouldn't say stupid, but not logical for sure, because we're all about logic here. And I'm sorry, transgender doesn't fit into the logic category, by the way. Remember, transgender is purely emotional, not logical. That's why we came up with the term bio-emotional gender. Biological gender, and then your bio-emotional gender. That's why we coined that phrase. But they will. So we move on from that. And the media will just attack Donald Trump for everything they can find. They attacked him the other day because remember when we talked about how the judgment or the bond was lowered to $175 million in his fraud case in New York? Okay, that's great. I wish it was brought down to zero because he did nothing wrong. Remember, we talked about it at length many times. The banks did the appraisals. The banks wanted the higher valuation. Even at a lower interest rate, they still made more money than they would have at a lower valuation. So the banks are able to loan more money out to other people. So if you wanted to go after anybody, go after the banks. They're the ones that made the money off all of his fraud deals, quote unquote fraud deals. It was the banks, not Trump. The banks approved all of it because they made more money. Anyway, we've gone over it so much. Actually, I'm tired of talking about it. It's just so stupid. It's just so stupid that people look at it and go, oh, he's such a bad guy. He's such a bad guy. No, he's not. He's smart. He's actually... Anyway, they were attacking him the other day because it lowered the payment down to $175 million. And they said, he was given 10 days to pay it. And on day one, the media... I saw an article that was put out. If he has the money, then why hasn't he paid it yet? What? Why would he? He has 10 days. Why is that even an article? I mean, think about the small judgments that we receive. A speeding ticket where we're like, hey, I'm going to wait till the last possible moment to pay this garbage because I don't want to. There's nothing wrong with that. So they attack him for that. They attack him because, well, he also had Truth Social. And I'm sorry for laughing so much. I just find I must be in a good mood today. But he has Truth Social. And it goes public and makes him about what, $5 or $6 billion. He becomes one of the 500 richest men in the world again, in terms on paper. And remember, being wealthy doesn't mean you have all that money in a money bin that you're swimming around in as if it was a liquid. No. On paper, he's again one of the 500 richest men in the world. And the liberals are all mad about it. Oh, such a terrible thing. He's so stupid. Every time, and this is how stocks work. Anytime you go public, it always starts high and then it will drop. Remember what Facebook did? We thought Facebook was done for when they went public. It's true. Go look it up. Facebook started at a really high valuation and dropped so significantly in the first little while that we thought Facebook was done for. We thought we were going to see Zuckerberg out in Tent City out in San Francisco because he was going to go broke. No, of course not. So what happens with these tech companies that have no assets? The only assets they have is their software, and their software is not really considered an asset. Remember, I come from a long years and years of building software. I'm a software engineer, and I know how it works. When you go public with software, remember, you have a software company, and it's huge, and it's valued at so high. But the only thing you have to show for it are your users. That's it. So your users and the traffic that you have becomes the valuation of your company. And so because the more users you can have, the more you can advertise, and the more you can advertise, the more you make money. So the value of your company is determined by such a fluid concept. You don't have an actual physical product that people are buying and they love and they keep it in their homes. It's a very fluid concept. So that's why in the early stages of a tech startup, public stock is pretty volatile. You just stick with it. It'll level out and be okay. But remember, Facebook did the same thing. MySpace did MySpace go public? I actually can't remember. But I remember it wasn't that long ago. A couple of years ago, Facebook went public. They dropped. Their stocks dropped so much because the only thing they have to show is the fact that they have this very fluid idea of logging in on a website and then advertising on it. So, yeah, eventually Truth Social should level out. I'm not saying I'm not a fortune teller. Who knows? Maybe it will have some problems, but still, even with the drop, the media is reporting every time it goes down, every time that stock drops. They're right there. Oh, it dropped. Oh, it dropped again. And they think it's so funny. They were posting how it's so hilarious that Donald Trump has lost all of this value. He's still up by $2 billion. That's still up by $2 billion more than I have, and more than any of these idiots have that are writing these articles. Talking about media just makes me so. It gets me all worked up because for 8 years, actually more than 8 years, for 9 years, almost a decade, we have been reading and we've been listening to articles and specials and news about Donald Trump. And they have been just trying to create this drama that isn't there. They are trying to create drama that isn't there. Everything that has happened, they've tried, the media and the liberal media has tried to make it worse than it actually is. The classified document scandal, yes, it's worse than, they're making it sound like it's worse than it actually is. It's not actually that bad. In fact, guess what? The FBI refused to break into Donald Trump's home. Did you know this? They asked Garland about this, the Attorney General. The FBI has has made a statement that we refused to break into his home. We did not want to raid his home. We felt like we could get the documents. They were complying, and they had direct orders to bust in there. They didn't want to. They had direct orders to do it. They were being pushed by the Attorney General's office to break in. Anyway, that whole classified documents thing is so stupid. Biden's was far worse. And if you don't believe me, then you're not listening and you're not paying attention. He was the vice president. He should have never even had classified documents. Trump was the president. Let's drop it already. Jeez. And you know what? That's actually one of those situations that logically, even if Trump was the Democrat and Biden was the Republican, I would be on the Democrat side. I would be like, guys, come on, let's drop this, because we've got they're all doing the same crap. So let's wash it and let's move on. But they won't. They won't. Anyway, so the media is reporting, they try to make that sound so bad. January 6th? Oh, man, they try to make that sound so bad. We've talked about January 6th at length. I don't want to get into it again. Listen to my other episodes because we go into every detail. Trump asked for peace and patriotism, and that January 6th was nothing more than a bunch of hoodlums that got what they deserved. They busted some windows. They broke in there. They need to be locked up not for insurrection. Jeez, nobody was even armed. And everybody says, yes, they were. No. Go watch the footage. You're free to watch the footage. It's all available. Every bit of it. You will never see any of them carrying a firearm. Any. Go watch it. Don't take my word for it. Go watch the footage. You cannot foment an insurrection being unarmed. Idiots. So anyway, we have January 6th. I mean, they want that the media wants that to be Trump's insurrection. Again, you can't blame it on Trump when he asked for peace. So I don't know what they're doing. So they try to make all of the news and the stories sound way worse than they actually are. You know, there was a time for a while there I was reading articles being posted by Vanity Fair. Vanity Fair? Vanity Fair isn't even good at posting articles about fashion. And they want to get into news? Why? Why? But their news articles were so ridiculous for many years. I actually haven't seen articles from them in a long time. You'll see them come up every once in a while, but they've slowed for some reason. I don't know why. But you know how many times Vanity Fair, and this is just an example. I use Vanity Fair as an example to show how the media reports on Donald Trump. Do you know how many times Vanity Fair posted that Donald Trump will be arrested by Monday? Do you know how many times that was not just reported in an article, but it was one of the headlines? They reported it as it's one of the headlines of their stories, saying, Donald Trump, we found the smoking gun. Donald Trump will be in handcuffs by Monday. And it was usually over the weekend. And they say, we have an unnamed source says that we have evidence that will come out. And everybody's like, okay, all right, here we go. If we have evidence, let's see it. And then it goes on. And they're like, everybody's like, where's the evidence? And they're like, oh, it's coming. It's coming. And then it just disappears and nobody ever says a word. And then they continue on, and again, they'll report it again. I lost count how many times Vanity Fair did this. I lost count. And this is just one little publication. This was happening everywhere. But I lost count at like 40 over the years. 40 times. They're saying, that means that almost once a month they're posting an article about how Donald Trump is going to be arrested in handcuffs by Monday. And nothing would happen. And they'd do it again. And nothing would happen. I got to tell you, okay, for a while there, I was sitting there thinking, okay. They've reported this 40, 50 times. So let's see. Let's do the math on this. How many times did they report it? And how many times was he arrested and put in handcuffs? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 0. So 0. Now I know he was arrested for the Georgia thing. Okay. He's got a mugshot. If you want to count that, go right ahead. So 1 for probably the most ridiculous case that's brought against him. Keep in mind, which is, again, we'll go into this in further detail, but that stupid case with the Fannie Willis, and she's trying to get Trump. She's just as bad as Letitia James up in New York. But what's interesting is that whole Georgia case, all of the prosecutors have spent time meeting at the White House with White House legal counsel. Okay. Well, that's pretty transparent. Idiots. Gosh. Anyway, we'll go into detail because that's hilarious. Maybe I will talk about it on a future episode, but it's hilarious. They've spent time, the prosecutors have spent time sitting there in the White House talking to Biden, and they come back and they're charging Donald Trump. Okay. That again, it speaks volumes. We can see it. We can see that you're just trying to take out your political opponent. We know. Going back. I get off on these tangents. I'll go back. I never lose my place, though, folks, because I have a sharper mind than Joe Biden, so I never lose my place. Oh, speaking of which, one more little thing. We hear him do gibberish. This is really funny. I love this. Every time, have you ever noticed this? Every time Biden loses his place when he's talking, he just says, "Oh, I'm not gonna go into that." Every time he loses his place, every time his mind goes blank, he's like, I'm not going to go into it. Listen.
How do you, I go down the list, I'm not going to take your time, but you know.
We hear this all the time. This is just the most recent. I'm not going to take your time. Well, please. No. I will give you more time. Please continue. I don't mind. Let's back up. I want you to take my time and I want you to finish your sentence. I'm okay. I think everybody in the room is okay. Let's finish your sentence. Proceed. Nah, he doesn't know what he's saying. So he always, I'm not going to take your time. My favorite, you know the thing when he's trying to recite. The Declaration of Independence. You know, the thing. Anyway. Back to Vanity Fair. Again, I always come back because I do have a sharper mind than Joe Biden. I don't lose my place. Vanity Fair. Again, they reported it, Trump being arrested, with 0% accuracy. For years, they reported with 0% accuracy. And they kept doing it week after week, reporting with 0% accuracy. Well, I'll tell you what, Vanity Fair. Hold on to your jobs. Do whatever you need to do to hold on to your jobs. Because your idiot editors, those dum-dums that you have as editors that are allowing you to continuously report with 0% accuracy, you're never going to find anything like that again. This has to be the best job ever. You know what would happen in my job if I did it with 0% accuracy? Well, I wouldn't have a job. And on that note, I'm going to leave you there. I love that you joined me today. This is American Mike for The Logic Dilemma. America, do not let logic be a problem in your lives. Open your eyes and start paying attention. Love you guys.